Hi everyone. Today I'll be talking about Webpush channels, which is a pub-sub paradigm and channel-based push service. My name is Mansimar Kaur, and I work as a software developer intern with the storage team of Mozilla. And I got selected for it through a program called Outreachy. And I've also contributed to Brackets, which is a code editor by Adobe. What exactly is Outreachy? Outreachy is an initiative of the Software Freedom Conservancy, and it's open to participation for women, transgenders, and other underrepresented communities. Through Outreachy, free and open source software organizations hire interns to work remotely for 3 months on projects in collaboration with mentors. So what I'm talking to you about today is basically my Outreachy project. And the organization that I'm working with is Kinto. So a couple of points about Kinto and why it's so amazing. Kinto is basically a minimalist JSON storage service, which is being used and developed at Mozilla, and it has been released under the Apache V2 license. So through Kinto, you can create great user-facing interfaces, which can be synchronized over multiple devices. And when you create a web API, there are multiple number of times you're worried about handling cross-origin resource sharing, or maybe you want your web app to be very secure. You want to take care of the privacy of the users through encryption. So when you use Kinto, the path between your great idea and the deployment to production will be quite short. And we at Kinto are firm believers of the fact that user data belongs to users and not necessarily the application. So we believe that the application should be decoupled from the storage location. And now coming to the mutualization of services and self-hosting part, which basically means that the backend is deployed, scaled, and secured only once, and which is awesome. Now, those of you who want to, start contributing to Kinto or want to use it, you can join our IRC channel, which is #Kinto on irc.freenode.net, and you can also join us on Slack, and you can find us on GitHub, on github.com/Kinto. And now coming to address the elephant in the room, which is my project. What is Webpush? Now, basically, native apps have had the privilege of, sending engaging and timely content to users since a very long time. And the web is still following. So, maybe you're busy doing some other stuff. You're folding your laundry and you're connected to the internet, or you're surfing some other website and you've allowed another website to let you push notifications. So they can send you notifications with whatever new content is available. Now, why is it exactly called web push? Because the data that is being sent to you is basically being pushed by the web app server to you, and it is being displayed to you in the form of a notification using the show notification API. Now, for a website to be able to push you notifications, it's very essential that the website has an active service worker. Now, what is a service worker? A service worker is basically a JavaScript file which acts as which is a background worker, and it is able to control the web pages and sites it is associated with. It basically acts as a proxy server between your browser and the web app server by routing data between them. A service worker is active and keeps working even when you're not on that particular web page or website to which the service worker is associated, and it even keeps running during browser restarts. That's quite powerful. And for when there's power, there comes responsibility. So service workers can only be registered over web pages that are served on HTTPS, and since a service worker is not associated with a particular tab or just page, it cannot handle DOM, but it can send events to it, and in future service workers will be able to support geofencing, which is basically geofencing is an API in which there'll be geographic boundaries which can be marked, and when your device crosses that, you'll be able to receive notifications. Now, basically when you visit a web page which has a service worker associated with it, what happens is through service worker container or registers call, you basically a promise gets resolved to I'm sorry, through service worker container or register. After this, an object is returned. That object is basically the registration of the service worker. Once the registration is done, the service worker file is downloaded on your browser, and this happens after every 24 hours or so, and can be done, even in a lesser time. And if the file that is downloaded is found to be new, it is installed. And if your browser if your browser is not using the previous service worker file, then the new one will be activated. And once the activation is done, the first step to be able to receive push notifications is done. Now, coming to the next step. Basically, when you visit a website, you must have seen that you get this pop-up kind of thing, which asks your permission whether you'd like to receive some notifications. You can always choose to receive notifications or to block them. Once you click on always receive notifications, what happens is pushmanager.subscribe is called. What this does is it subscribes the service worker with the push server, so that it's able to receive push notifications. What happens with pushmanager.subscribe is basically a promise is returned, which resolves into the subscription. Now what happens? Okay. Now that I mentioned the push server, what exactly it is? It basically acts as a middleman between your web app server and the client, routing the payload between them. And what happens is the service worker has a communication channel with the push service. Now talking about the UAID. UAID is the user agent ID. What happens is there is a communication channel between the browser and the web push server. That channel between them is recognized with the UAID. So if a particular user if a particular user has basically given permission for the push notifications, the server will be able to send information with the help of this UID to your browser. Now, when the browser receives the information, it has to be sent to the service worker that is involved. Now, to be able to send that information to the service worker, the browser identifies it through a channel ID. So, through the channel ID, the service worker is able to receive the information. Now, coming back to the part where we've send this request for subscription to the push server. Now, what the push server does is it returns a capability URL and encryption keys. Now, talking about the capability URL on the internet, there are two ways in which we can access information. The first is through passwords, and the second is through obscure URLs, which contain information, and people who should be able to access that information, only those have those URLs. So, capability URL is just that. And encryption keys are for encrypting the payload that will be sent across in the push messages. So the push server sends back the capability URL and encryption keys to the service worker, and the service worker sends them across to the web app server. So the web app server so that the web app server can send notifications as and when they have to be sent. Now, talking about the web push channels that I'm creating, in that what happens is, this is a sample request which sends across the subscription, the push notification subscription to the service. So this is basically a post request in which the endpoint URL, which is a capability URL, and the keys are being sent across. Here I've used HTTP PY to send the example request, and this is my server. This is my URL, and the endpoint is /subscriptions. And what you can see in the form of auth token is basically basic auth, which is used for authentication. Once I send the post request, this is the example response that I get, which is 201 created. What happens is this subscription has been created and saved for future reference, when a subscription has to be, when a push notification has to be actually sent to the subscriber. Now, basically the service that I've created is a PubSub service, as I mentioned in the starting. So a little bit about what PubSub is. Now that the subscription has been done and we've allowed the web app server to send us notifications, we need to inform the web app server about what things we require notifications. So how this is done is through pub/sub channels. Basically, pub/sub is a paradigm in which there are publishers and then there are subscribers, and the publishers are the ones which send out information, and subscribers are the ones which want that information. And both the publisher and the subscriber, I mean. The publisher and the subscriber, both of them, without basically, the publisher is able to send across information on a channel. It is not aware of how many subscribers are there, or not directly sending it to each one of them. Basically, there's a channel, just like a TV channel, on which you can just send across the information, and the publisher publishes the information, and the subscribers which are subscribed to a particular channel, they can access that information. Now, coming to the part how to subscribe a channel. To subscribe to a channel, you basically have to send a put request on the endpoint /channel/channel ID /registration, where channel ID is basically the channel name. And for example, for example's sake, I've used the form builder update, a form builder update channel. And channels, basically after you send the put request, you get an accepted request, which means that the server has acknowledged the fact that you want to be informed about whenever there's a whenever there's a message published on this particular channel, the one which the user is just subscribed to. Now, coming to the part when there's some changes in some data, and you need to publish to a channel and to inform the subscribers about the whatever changes have taken place. So what happens is a post request is sent to the push server, and the data payload is encrypted using the encryption keys which were sent with the subscription. The subscription that we received initially when the user had allowed us to send them push notifications along with the endpoint URL. So those encryption keys will be used to encrypt the payload and send across the push message along in the form of a post request. So the endpoint here is /channel/channel ID. Now, the example response will be 202 accepted, and as I told you that data payload will be encrypted and it will be authenticated through the endpoint. And for encryption, we've used Webpusher, and when this push message will be sent across, it will be sent across with a TTL header, which is a time to live header, which tells the push server for how long the message that has been sent has to live on the server when the user is not online. So once the push service receives it, it can send it across. Now, to summarize the entire process that takes place, what happens is you get a pop-up saying, would you like to subscribe to notifications? You say yes. So what the service worker does is, it sends a request to the Mozilla push, to the push server basically, and the push server sends across the endpoint and the encryption keys, and after you get the endpoint and the encryption keys, you send it to the web app server. That subscription is saved, and now you have to inform the server about what channels you want to subscribe to. You send across a put request, and you inform the server about what channels you want to subscribe to. And after you've subscribed, and say some data changes happen, and now you need to be informed about it, the data will be retrieved, and the encryption keys will be retrieved, and the encryption will be done, and the payload will be sent across to the push server, and then the push server will store it until it can directly pass it on to the service, pass it on to the browser if the user is online. If the user is not online, the message will live on the server for the time specified in the TTL, which was the time to live header, and when the payload is received, the payload is decrypted and sent to the respective service worker, and the service worker decides whether it has to be shown in the form of a notification through the show notification API, or something has to be done in the background. So that's about it. Thank you.